Hey everyone, it is Thursday, the 10th of February. Today's video, I decided to do a sort of a resource video, at least in the resources that I've used. People have been asking a lot lately, um, before I did the videos, what are some resources out there uh, available? And specifically, people have asked me what I've used over the years. So the other thing, we're going to try to keep these videos under 10 minutes. My last video, as much as it was a gut punch, um, and a little bit more powerful than the first one, it got more views. And I think it may be because it was shorter. And I get it. So we're going to try to keep these under 10 minutes and to the point. And if you guys have any suggestions, not that really anyone has, on things you want to talk about, just shoot me a message, PM, comment on the post, whatever it is. So hopping right into it, resources that I use specifically. There's always the common, therapy or counseling. I went through that for years. As a kid, I was misdiagnosed as, well, maybe not even misdiagnosed, but they think now misdiagnosed as having attention deficit disorder and hyperactivity. Come to find out with what I went through as a kid, that may not be the case because I was an A student until I got to high school. So, there's always regular counseling, which, is sitting on a couch, staring at the ceiling and being like, yeah, I had a bad day today because they bagged my groceries in paper bags instead of plastic or whatever. I didn't get a lot of really good use out of your common everyday garden variety therapy or counseling because of how much trauma I had. I also went through grief counseling. This was obviously after my first wife was killed. It was very beneficial. The men's grief group that I went to in 2003 was not useful. And that was only because, I was, 24 years old. I just lost my wife in an accident. I walk into a room that was supposed to be for men's grief, and God love them, but it was full of a bunch of 80-year-old men who just lost their wife after old age. So I was not in the right place for that. So that didn't, the group itself didn't really work for me, but grief counseling, which I was in for about a year and a half, was very beneficial. We worked through that trauma specifically and the feelings, emotions associated with that specific loss. So grief counseling is huge. And grief counseling doesn't have to do with losing someone or, whatnot. Grief, we grieve a lot of things. We grieve any loss. We grieve, job loss. We grieve our independence, financial loss, what have you. Anything that's a loss can be grieved. And it's very important to do so. So grief counseling is one pretty big one. The other one that was huge for me was trauma counseling. That was probably the mainstay of my treatment for years, was being in a one-on-one, essentially a therapy session. But my specific trauma therapist was actually a doctor. And I got the most out of that when it came to hashing out all my traumas. Now, again, I have complex PTSD. I have a lot of traumas, and a trauma therapist was appropriate for me. And if you find the right one, they are amazing. However, I learned shortly after that just doing the work in a counseling session or a trauma therapy session or even inpatient isn't always, doesn't always wrap it up. So the other things, over the years, and I'm pretty transparent on Facebook, and a lot of people probably know, is I've done numerous inpatient stays. Some were first responder based, some were not, and honestly, there really wasn't one was better than the other. A lot of times, as a first responder, going in with general pop for like learning classes can be tough because it's really hard, and most first responders will get this. It's really hard to sit in a class when you have traumas based on watching babies die or, seeing burned up grandmas, and having to sit and listen to someone who's upset and is claiming PTSD because they lost their Xbox or their PlayStation or something. So that isn't always beneficial, but being on a general population inpatient floor, I have found beneficial based on how I utilize the different groups they had throughout. Some of the more specific programs, Brattleboro Retreat has treatment. They no longer have a first responder program, as far as I know. There's Onset Academy, which is like a retreat more than it is crisis intervention or intense therapy. There's McLean's Hospital down in Belmont, which does like pretty much everything, all the different types of modalities. There's FHE down in Florida. There's a IFF, Center for Excellence. And I don't know on their standards whether you actually have to be a past or present IFF member to go. And then there's Fortitude in Columbus, Ohio, which is part of a different program. And I just leave in my mind what it was. I have not been the FHE. I have not been the Fortitude, and I have not been the Brattleboro. I have been through McLean's and I have been through Onsite. And each place has their own way of handling things and their own benefit. I got more out of McLean's than I did Onsite, but I know people who got more on Onsite than they did McLean's. So the other thing, and honestly, where I've made my biggest strides has been reading. And I know that sounds silly, but self-help is so frowned on. And I always thought it was a joke. Why am I going to read a book? I'm going to read a book to get better, but it works. And anyone who's a religious reader will tell you that reading is an escape. It calms you down. It gives you that release. And when you read books about learning how to deal and how to cope with trauma and how to practice resiliency and post-traumatic growth, you actually do have some major breakthroughs. So I have some books I'm going to sort of show to the camera, name them, whatnot. These are the ones I've either read, currently reading, or will be reading very shortly. I'm going to start with the one that really made the biggest dent last year when I read it in my recovery, my resiliency, and my biggest steps in post-traumatic growth. That book is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and it's by Dr. Joe Dispenza. This is the book. It's a thicker book. Essentially what it is about reestablishing a new personality. And I go on about this with people all the time. Trauma creates a personality that is very destructive, very negative, very self-loathing. And in order to get out of that, you have to create a new one. And so this book kind of goes into that. It goes into a lot of meditation stuff. I learned how to meditate through this book. I don't try to push meditation on everyone. It isn't for everyone, but I swear by it. So there's that. And then there's a bunch of books by Thich Nhat Hanh, who just recently passed away at like 95 years old. He's a Buddhist monk that has about 20 books, and they're absolutely amazing. If you're really into like spirituality and mindfulness and living in the now and focusing on what you can control, which is really the key to finding the most amount of post-traumatic growth, figuring out what you actually have control on. So some of his books, again, The Heart of Buddhist Teaching. This is one of the first that I read of his. You Are Here, which is about living in the moment. The Art of Communicating. I think everyone can figure that one out. But honestly, it's on a serious note, listening is a huge thing that a lot of people can't do. And it goes over that, the different stages of listening and how to be a better listener and how to talk more meaningfully. The other one is Peace of Mind. I haven't actually read this one yet, but it was recommended to me by someone who has gotten me into these books. So can't wait to start that one. And one of the better of the smaller ones of his book is The Miracle of Mindfulness. And that just really goes over living in the moment and being mindful in everything that you do. And literally everything we do in life, we can be mindful and we can live a more peaceful life. And this isn't about being a pacifist. I'm not a Buddhist. I still like eating cows. This isn't about giving up anything. This is about taking different points of view and implementing them into your life so you can be more at peace and get over trauma and process trauma and grieve your losses and be a better person, because we all deserve to be better people. So off of the Buddhist books for a little bit. The Brain That Changes Itself is another sort of similar to the Joe Dispenza book. I haven't read it. It came highly recommended, actually through my coaching connections, which I can get into a little bit. Highly recommended book. This was a really good book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People by Harold Kushner, who was a Jewish doctor. Waited until late in life. They had a child that was born with a rare disease, with the age, I forget the name of it, the child aged quicker than they should have and died at a very young age. And so he goes over how religion often plays in with people feeling they deserve the bad things that happen. And it resonated to me because for years I felt like I deserved all the shit that I went through. So that was a good book. And then everyone's going to laugh at this one, or at least some of you are. I know at least Jen Anderson's not. But Tony Robbins, man, Awaken the Giant Within. Now, I could have done with the edition that didn't have his giant mouth on it with those big, shiny, scary teeth, but it's also kind of funny. So I haven't read that yet. I actually haven't read any of his books. He, again, came recommended through the coaching end of things. But Tony is one of those very inspirational, motivating coaches that just kind of puts it all out there and has helped a lot of people. So I look forward to reading that as well. And then, to kind of touch on coaching, that will be a separate video in itself to really get into it. In regards to the position I'm currently in as Director of Business Development at First Responder Coaching, I got into coaching through someone reaching out to me and actually getting coached on several things and seeing the immediate reward of what coaching can do. Coaching isn't therapy. If anyone who's seen the video I put out through First Responder Coaching, the media card, you hear what I say. It's not therapy. It's not marriage counseling. It's not pharmaceuticals. It's not, Reiki or acupuncture or massage. It's a conversation. And because of how deep the conversations can be, I've actually found it very beneficial, and I still get coached. Even being in the company, I still utilize coaching in order to set and meet goals in my personal and professional life now. And it's a pretty amazing thing. So I will do another video on coaching, specifically through First Responder Coaching. I would do another video because there's a lot to it. But in the meantime, if anyone does want to know more about it, hit me up. Go to the website, First Responder coaching.org, and that's 1ST for first. Tell them I sent you. But I will get into another video over there because I know there's a lot of people who have no idea. Most first responders have no idea what it is. And we'll touch on that. Maybe next week I'll do a video on coaching and we'll go with that. So that's what I got for resources that specifically I use with a couple extra added in. Reading's huge, folks. For any readers out there, get these books, look up other books that have to do with like just living in the now and learning what you can control and making a better you. This shit really works. And anyone who knows me, I am one of the most stubborn Irishmen there is. And I've made huge leaps and bounds by reading this stuff. And it's so near and dear to my heart. So I highly recommend them. Again, hopefully I kept that under 10 minutes. But if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, or suggestions for future videos, please reach out. Let me know. I'll talk about whatever. In the meantime, I have a whole topic list that I'll just keep putting videos out on, and we'll go from there. So take care, guys and gals. Be safe, and much love.